All right, Shalom. I want to start off by giving our praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakak Wadash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. And today, Slakia, I just want to do this quick lesson on, this woman, who murdered, her children, and is now receiving, support and also nearly $2 million, after doing so, So I'm just going to read this post, play a couple clips, and bring out a few scriptures. Lord willing, this lesson is edifying and straight to the point. And before I get started, I'm going to read the copyright disclaimer. It says copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowances made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. So the following clips that I'm going to feature are being used for educational purposes only. I'm not making any money off of anyone else's content. So fair use, fair use, fair use. And this is from the page Spiritual World on Instagram. And it says Lindsay Clancy, who is on trial for killing her 3 children by strangulation, has had supporters raise $1 million to support her and her family. And as you can see, this is her GoFundMe, or Salakia. It actually was nearly $1 million, but that was her goal of $2 million. So Salakia for that. But the post reads, Lindsay Clancy supporters gather outside the courthouse in pink as jury deliberations began today. She killed 3 of her children, Cora, 5, Dawson, 3, and Kaylin, 8 months, before taking her own life. It's lucky before trying to take her own life. Her defense argues she was legally insane. No, she wasn't. Because just like the Edomite man, she unalived her children. Because again, you Edomites are known for that. You'll take out your entire family and then take out yourselves, which she clearly attempted to do. So let's play this first one.
No way. They're having a support rally for Lindsay, the woman who took the life of her 3 kids. Not saying she's innocent. They're saying they understand why she did it. That postpartum was the cause and that she deserves more help.
This many women in one place at one time who may understand all of us on a level that others don't. So
on a level that others don't understand, you're having a rally about how y'all all thought about getting rid of your kids. That's not a... Whoa, where the cops? Where the police at, man?
Thank you.
Mind you, again, they're not out there because they think she's innocent. They're literally saying she only did it because nobody helped her through her postpartum. That her husband should have took her mental illness seriously. So when do the cops come in? Because you have a mass group of women outside a courtroom admitting that they also have ideas of doing things to their kids. And there's no, what, bro? There's no way no one can go to jail?
Let's play this next one.
An astounding show of support today for Lindsay Clancy. Hundreds of women, all dressed in pink, cheered the accused mom as she arrived in a police caravan for her murder trial. Supporters ran across the field to greet Lindsay. Some came with their babies. They held up heart hands during a silent rally for the mom who strangled her 3 young children, then jumped from the 2nd floor window, leaving her paralyzed for life.
It's a buzz around here, guys.
Fox News legal analyst Chanley Painter, a former prosecutor, actually wore pink in her live report as she spoke to Lindsay's defense attorney, who was greeted with cheers.
Hey guys, what do you think of the support for Lindsay Clancy out here?
I have no words.
No words?
It's amazing.
The rally for Lindsay Clancy is not just in Plymouth, Massachusetts, where the trial is being held. There are gatherings across the USA today, including here in New York, in Union.
All right, now let's read what it says. It says hundreds of supporters gather outside Plymouth Superior Court in Massachusetts on August 20th, 2026, dressed in pink for a peaceful demonstration supporting Lindsay Clancy. The event, called Stand in Peace for Lindsay, was organized as Clancy stands trial in connection with the January 2023 deaths of her 3 children, Cora, Dawson, and Kaylin, at their home in Duxbury. Clancy, a former nurse, has acknowledged causing the deaths, but is pursuing a defense arguing that she was not criminally responsible because of severe postpartum illness and psychosis. Supporters, some reportedly traveling from outside Massachusetts, gathered in circles and observe moments of silence. Organizers and attendees also used the demonstration to draw attention to concerns surrounding maternal mental health and access treatment. The case remains deeply divisive, with the trial focusing not only on the tragic deaths of the children, but also on Clancy's mental state at the time of the killing. So obviously, if this were a so-called, black woman, then yeah, they would have thrown her in jail. There wouldn't be a need for her to go to trial. Obviously, they would have charged her anyway, but, this woman murdered her 3 children and is receiving nearly $1 million in funds. And, as you can see, primarily Edomite women gathered out there, or all Edomite women gathered out there to support her, right? It's crazy. So let's see what this second comment says, right? It says, I have a question. If this was a black woman, would y'all be doing this? And the answer is no. It says, if this was a Latina woman, would y'all be doing this? Again, the answer would be no. The only reason why she's getting all this support is not because she's white, but because she's an Edomite. That's why, And why is that? Because they're not in trouble as other men, which I'm going to grab the scripture. But it's true, because there is no way that a woman would take out her 3 children and, get away with it. It's straight madness. So I'm going to play this last one, and that's going to be it.
This is what happened. Generation lacks common sense.
Did she murder 3 of her children? Yes. Do I think she should go to prison for it? No.
I think she should walk free. She's been through so much. Her life is ruined. She'll never be okay. Why punish her even more? The system failed her. Her husband failed her.
What is your date of birth?
June 15th, 1988.
He did it. Patrick Clancy did it, and you will never convince me otherwise. This is his partial birth chart. I do not have his birth time, so I cannot say what his rising...
Accountability is just out the door for women. I killed 3 of my kids and I get $900K e-transfer the next day. Here comes modern day women with their opinions. Oh, it's because she's depressed. The husband did it. The stars did it. When 3 people lost their lives that they can never get back. What do you guys think about this in the comments? This is what happened.
And then that's another question. Where is her husband? Where is he concerning this whole situation? Even though it took place 3 years ago, where is he? Why is he not outraged by this? Why isn't he, speaking out? Why isn't he on, trial also, trying to convict her? Because they're not in trouble as other men. So real quick before I grab the scriptures, looked it up on Google, right? And put in, what is postpartum depression? It says postpartum depression is a serious mental health condition that happens after a woman has a baby. It says it brings intense sadness, low energy, and extreme worry. These heavy feelings last longer and hurt more than normal. Baby blues. It can start during pregnancy or up to a full year after birth. Common signs and symptoms: feeling sad, hopeless, or empty most of the time, crying a lot for no clear reason, feeling very angry, cranky, or restless, trouble sleeping or wanting to sleep all day, pulling away from family and friends, trouble bonding or feeling close to the baby, doubts about your ability to care for the baby. Causes and risk factors: quick hormone changes after birth, extreme physical tiredness and lack of sleep, past personal or family history of depression, stressful life events, or a hard birth experience, low support from family or friends. So they're trying to say that, she suffered from postpartum depression, which again, I'm not saying that's fake, because again, obviously it is a real thing. It happens, but it shouldn't be to the point where you take out your own 3 children and get away with it. Well, I don't know if she got away with it, but if she doesn't, then, clearly this is why. This is the book of Psalms, chapter 73, and verse 5. It says, "They are not in trouble as other men, neither are they plagued like other men." All right, this is talking about the nation of Edom, because again, if the tables were turned and there were a so-called, well, not a so-called, but if there were an Israelite woman, a so-called Negro, Latino, or Native American woman that would have done the exact same thing, then they would have convicted her. She wouldn't have received, support. If anything, that would have probably been out there, telling them to lock her up. Why? Because again, she took out her 3 children, but again, we'll see exactly how this goes, because again, they'll try to say that, the way I see it, they'll try to have her plead insanity. She was crazy. So the most they'll probably do is have her sent to a mental institution, or, release her and probably put her on probation. But meanwhile, if there were an Israelite woman that would have done that exact same act, then she would be, locked away, for a long time. Right? But this goes to show you, how cruel Edom is, right? Let me get this real quick in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 30 and verse 7. It says, "And the Lord Yahweh thy power will put all these curses upon thine enemies, and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee." And as we can see, the curses are slowly coming off of, the children of Israel, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, and what they're starting to, come upon the different heathen nations, but primarily who? Edom, the so-called white man, or the white race, and clearly, that woman, she had an evil eye toward her children, right? Which is one of the curses that, us still to this day, we suffer from, So let's get that in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 56. This is concerning the Israelite woman, but again, you can apply it to this woman, Lindsay Clancy, right? It's the book of Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 56. It says, "The tender and delicate woman among you, which would not venture to set the sole of her foot upon the ground for delicateness and tenderness." There's the point. It says, "Her eyes should be evil toward the husband of her bosom, and toward her son, and toward her daughter, and toward her young one that cometh out from between her feet, and toward her children which she shall bear. For she shall eat them for one of all things, secretly in the siege and straitness, wherewith thine enemy shall distress thee in thy gates." And right, this woman clearly had an evil eye toward her children. Now she's trying to blame it on astrology or postpartum depression, but no, you're just a demon, because you Edomites, man, you are the devil that the Bible speaks of, man. And you people, yes, you people are known to do this, to unalive your entire family and then take yourselves out, because again, that's what you tried to do, murder her 3 children and then commit suicide, which she failed at, But this goes to show you that, these people, they get away with these particular crimes, because again, they're not plagued like us. They're not in trouble like us, because again, if an Israelite, whether it be a so-called Negro, Latino, or Native American, but primarily a so-called Negro man, primarily the man, or woman, were to commit the very same crime an Edomite man or woman would do, then, obviously, excuse me, Slakia, the Israelite is going to get a harsher sentence. Why? Because we're cursed. They're the rulers of this world, of this current world that we live in. So therefore, they're going to, give a less harsh sentence to one of their own. But even then, we know the elites, they don't even give a damn about the lower tier of their people, But this just goes to show you that, hell, even, the Edomites, the Edomite women, they're cruel to their children. Well, not just the women, but, Edomites are cruel to their children too, doing all kinds of wickedness. So let's get that in the book of Lamentations. It's like it's Jeremiah, book of Lamentations, chapter 4 and verse 3. It says, even the sea monsters draw out the breasts. They give suck to their young ones. The daughter of my people is become cruel, like the ostriches in the wilderness. Again, this is concerning the Israelite woman. But what? This woman, she was cruel, man. She had a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and an 8-month-old child. And she choked them all to death, And again, where was the husband when this went down? Where was he? If he was at work, understandable. He was out providing, If he was there, why didn't he do nothing? Why didn't he try to stop her? It's it's a number of questions, but, just where is he? What does he have to say about this situation? How does he feel about it? Because again, if I were married to a woman and, she, buried me 3 children, just for her to end up taking them out, then, she wouldn't have to worry about, going to prison, because, I would be going, because there's no way, you just take out her children for, no reason at all, But at the end of the day, it's judgment. They're Edomites, so I don't really care. But just pointing out the main fact that these people, they aren't in trouble like us, They could commit very, very serious crimes. We can clearly see, like, when they go out and commit school shootings or public shootings, right? What's the first thing they say? Oh, well, this individual, he just had, is it mental health problems? He was crazy, this, that, and the third. But let a Jake do that, which Jakes don't go and shoot up schools or public places unless it's their own neighborhood, or other places where Jakes is at, then, may you have a public shooting, but overall, Israelites are not committing the same crimes on the level that Edomites are doing it, because again, they commit some very heinous crimes and get away with it, or get a slap on the wrist. But meanwhile, a Jacob get a book thrown at him, But yeah, that woman, she was cruel. She murdered her 3 children, man, And you clearly see she's nearly gotten $1 million and, support from all of those different women, man, which is crazy. So I just wanted to speak on that real quick. Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. Till next time I say, Shalom.